Hello, everybody. It's Brandon again. Today we're going to talk about beer. I mean, I know most of everybody loves beer. Beer is delicious. It goes great with food, and it goes good just to sit around on a hot summer day and drink it. So a lot of people don't know much about beer. I mean, they know what they like and what they don't like, but they don't know much more in depth than that. So everybody knows beer is great. Many people across the world enjoy beer for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Um, some have different types of beer for breakfast, different types of beer for lunch, different types of beer for dinner, and also different types of beer for special occasions, which is pretty common here as well in some parts of the U.S. A fan favorite of Alaska is the IPA. The IPA is a very hoppy beer, and it is a very acquired taste. Not a lot of people like it, but the farther you get west coast, the more you'll find people that enjoy it rather than the east coast of the United States. IPA stands for India Pale Ale. It is made up uniquely by the massive amounts of hops that are in there, and when they use it in the early stage of the brewing. I'm about to give you a short history lesson on the godlike nectar of the India Pale Ale. India Pale Ale it comes from England back in the 1700s because England had a military dispute with India during those times, and they the English would like to send their troops beer so they could continue on battle and keep the morale up, and usually they would send them ales. However, the alcohol content of the ales weren't high enough, so they kept spoiling on the boat ride from England to India. So the guys over there in England decided to manufacture a new type of beer that had a higher alcohol content, so that way it could make the trip without spoiling. And the IPA was born. It's only natural to call it the IPA because of the location it was designed for. There's different types of IPAs. They all range in different IBUs. On the lower end of the spectrum, we have the English IPA, which has an average IBU score of 50, which IBUs I'll get to in just a moment. Just keep in mind of these numbers here. The American IPA is a slightly higher average score of 55, and then the highest point holder would be the Imperial Pale Ale, and that one has an average score of 90, but it can range between 60 and 120. So it's a pretty high up there, probably one of the highest beers on the scale itself. So what sets the IPA apart from other pale ales or other pale ales and other ales? The IPA is very unique taste. It has the same color as most pale ales, but it has the bitter scale is drastically higher because the massive amounts of hops, um, and it also has a higher alcohol content, as I said before. Um, Pale ales are on the bitter spectrum. They're a lot lower, and the IPAs are right up there in the middle. And you get the double IPAs and the imperial IPAs are on the very top, and those ones have a lot more bitter taste to them as well. Here I am talking about the IBU scale. The IBU is the International Bitter Units, and basically what that measures is the bitterness of the beer. Then the bitterness of the beer, it basically is like a warning to the consumer of the product that it's going to taste around this level. And if you're familiar with your beers, you know that the the average IBU of like a light beer or like a Budweiser or a Coors Light would be around 10 IBUs, and then when you look at the average of the IPUs or the IPAs, their IBUs are about 60. So it's a pretty big change there already, and an average for a stout would be around 30. So you definitely see a very big change in the different styles of beer and the different numbers they're putting out. Um, so the people brew beer more commonly now than they ever have before. Um, and so let's talk about why the IPA is more bitter than other beers. So yeast eats sugar, and the yeast, after it eats the sugar, it expels alcohol, and the alcohol is obviously where the beer gets its alcohol content from. So the more sugar you add in, the more food the yeast has to eat. The more yeast eats, the more it expels, and so after a while it starts to get really sugary. So they add more and more hops in order to change the taste from less sugary to more more bitter, and that's where the bitterness comes from inside the beer itself. And thus the IBU scale was created to adjust how much hops you're actually putting in the beer during the brew stages. Microbrews and home brews are popping up everywhere. I'm sure you've all been to small brew houses, such as Midnight Sun and other places as such. They make great beer, and they have lots of different qualities, and they always run through different taps. So they're getting the word out of different types of beer to share with the community, and it's becoming more and more popular now. And so is homebrewing. Homebrewing is, me personally, I've been homebrewing since I was, I think, 20 to 22, and I've been doing it with my dad since I was about 15. He was showing me the ropes since I was 15, just to pass on the family knowledge. Of course, I didn't consume until I was 21, though. All right. As the world opens up their palates more, they're all getting more involved in this consumption of craft brews, and the internet has been a wonderful staple to that, because we are able to have forums and communities online to share recipes and share thoughts and questions. So like it's become less of a prestigious little group and more of like everybody's welcome type of organization, and I really enjoy that. I really like the way it's heading. So that about sums it up. So each beer has a rich history, and a rich story behind it. So next time you go ahead and pop open that bottle of beer or that can of beer, why don't you just take a second and see what you're actually drinking and know the history behind it. It's actually very fascinating. And thanks for watching.